more details coming in. These breaking developments, tensions between India and Pakistan escalating, and in the latest, India is considering blocking postal services with Pakistan. That's the latest coming in right this minute. And that's not all. Authorities are also contemplating blocking Pakistani websites. And this comes hours after India closed its airspace for Pakistani flights. The volley of actions following India's major move of putting the crucial Indus Waters Treaty in abeyance last week. And the digital counter-offensive against Pakistan started earlier this week after India banned 16 Pakistani YouTube channels, acting on the recommendations of India's Ministry of Home Affairs. The banned platforms include major news outlets like Dawn, Sama TV, Geo News, also individual creators such as former Pakistani cricketer Shoaib Akhtar. These channels were believed to be spreading provocative, communally sensitive content along with false and misleading narratives against India, its army, also its security forces. Let's go straight across now to Siddhant Sibal, our Assistant Editor for Foreign Affairs, with us on the broadcast. Siddhant, get us up to speed with the latest at this point.
Well, India is mulling a lot of actions in the aftermath of the Pahalgam terror attack. Already we know that India had taken a lot of diplomatic measures, including suspending the Indus Water Treaty, cutting down the diplomatic strength of the missions, closing the Wagha-Atari border, revoking the visas given to Pakistani nationals, also the SARC visa as well. But now India is mulling closing down the postal services as well, shipping lanes being also being closed for Pakistani ships. That means that Pakistani ships can't make port of call to Indian shores. We know that in the past as well, postal services have been suspended, especially after India removed the special status for the erstwhile state of Jammu and Kashmir. We saw Pakistan suspending the postal services and India doing a tit-for-tat move as well. But that lasted for just 3 months. Just yesterday, we know that there was an announcement on India closing its airspace for Pakistani airlines, something that we know that Pakistan had done for the Indian airlines. So number of measures are being looked here in New Delhi, even as we know that there have been number of conversations. In fact, a big piece of news coming in that the Indian Defense Minister Rajnath Singh has spoken to his US counterpart, the US Defense Secretary. And remember that just a few hours ago, the Indian External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, spoke to Marco Rubio. And earlier, we know that the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the US President Donald Trump held talks in the aftermath of the Pahalgam terror attack. In fact, just few hours after the terror attack had happened. In fact, US has been very open about its support to India and its commitment to fight terrorism, something that was mentioned in the American readout of the telephonic conversation between External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar and the US Secretary of State Marco Rubio. So what will happen next is something that is still in the realm of speculation. But of course, will there be a kinetic response, a military response? Is something that there hasn't been any word from New Delhi, even though there has been a lot of warmongering coming from the Pakistani side, including, of course, the Pakistani Information Minister claiming at around 3 a.m. on Wednesday that India will be doing a military strikes. Of course, that deadline has now passed of 36 hours and there hasn't been any strikes by the Indian side. But it looks like on the diplomatic aspect, number of conversations have been happening in an otherwise very quiet New Delhi.
Right. Siddhant, let's just also talk about, like you also mentioned briefly, the talks that are taking place between the Defense Minister Rajnath Singh and his US counterpart, Pete Hegseth.
Well, yes, the talk happened just a short while ago, and we are expecting a readout from both the Indian side and from the Pentagon as well. And we know that the American side has been very vocal about its support to the Indian side. We saw the tweet by the DNI chief, Tulsi Gabbard, saying that they will back India's action against the perpetrators of this terror attack. We saw the FBI chief Kash Patel also reiterating the same during the telephonic conversation between the two defense ministers. ministers. The focus was on the security situation that had been developing in the aftermath of the Pahalgam terror attack, and perhaps what both sides can have cooperation on, especially on the counter-terror aspect. In fact, one thing I would like to point out to our viewers is that the UNSC statement on Pahalgam terror attack, the statement that condemned the terror attack, was initiated by the American side, even though there was a dilution with the Pakistani side not allowing the mentioning of TRF, the Resistance Front terror organization's name to be referred in the statement, and something that the Pakistan has been proudly pointing out. The foreign minister has been publicly saying, both in the Senate and press conferences, that it was Pakistan that did not allow the mentioning of the name of the Resistance Front, the terror group responsible for the Pahalgam terror attack. So we can expect more telephonic conversation between the Indian side and international community, even as the focus remains on what measures India will be taking to make sure that there is no repetition of such kind of terror activities in India, which of course have major linkages with the Pakistani establishment.
All right, we're leaving it there for the moment, Siddhant. Thanks very much for getting us up to speed with the very latest coming in. Also thanking our correspondent Idris Loan, who joined us earlier.